How's it going, guys? It's Red, and in this video I'm going to be showing you guys a super powerful bow and arrow DPS setup that you guys can be using right now in Back 4 Blood just after the release of the River of Blood DLC. But before we get into that, if you're new here to the channel, make sure to leave a like on this video and subscribe for more awesome Back 4 Blood content just like this. Also, make sure to check out the link to my Discord server. It's going to be down in the description below. You guys can use it to find teammates to play Back 4 Blood with, so if you guys are in some dire need of teammates, make sure to come check out the Discord server. And without further ado, I hope you guys enjoy the video. So before we get into the actual deck list, I did want to just spend some time here in the practice range and tell you guys a few things about the bow and arrow, because I think it would be a lot easier to explain it in here rather than trying to explain it over some of the gameplay that I have pre-recorded. Now, there's two ways that you guys can fire the bow and arrow, and there's going to be the primary mode here where we're just kind of hip firing, and this is going to have a much faster fire rate than what it's going to look like if we were to just sit here and ADS. But these shots are going to do significantly more damage than the ones where we don't ADS and just hip fire. So basically how we're going to utilize that is every time we have common infected, we just, start hip firing like so. And every time we see a special infected, we take the bow, we aim it, and we shoot it at their weak spots like that. And the longer that we hold this down, the more damage it actually does. Just a fun fact. Now, something also to notice is that our stamina bar is also going down every single time we shoot the bow and arrow, and if we just sit here and aim the bow and arrow, it is actually going to continuously use our stamina bar. So things that we're going to want to look out for in, when we're making our deck are cards that are going to give us, stamina regeneration and stamina efficiency. Alright, now here we are in the deck building menu in Back 4 Blood. This is going to be the complete deck list, so if you guys are just looking to copy and paste the deck, now is your time to do so. But for the remainder of this video, I'm just going to be talking about what role every card plays in the deck and just everything like that. Now, the first two cards that I want to go over in the deck are Slugger and Brazen, which are both cards that got reworked once this DLC actually came out, and they got reworked to actually help with the bow and arrow, because Slugger, while it still gives us the +5 health and the 10% melee stamina efficiency and the 20% melee attack speed, this card also gives us 10% bow stamina efficiency and plus 20% bow attack speed. And Brazen is going to do something very similarly, to where it still gives us the plus 15% melee stamina efficiency and the 20% melee attack speed, but this card also now gives us 15% bow stamina efficiency and 20% bow attack speed. So very similarly to how Slugger and Brazen are just staples of the melee decks, I think Slugger and Brazen are going to be staples of basically every single bow and arrow deck out there. These cards are just absolute all-stars in the deck. They make it so we shoot faster and use less stamina doing it, and it's just as good in this deck as it is in the melee decks. Now, these next category cards here are all going to be revolved around our stamina bar, and very similarly to a melee deck, our stamina bar is very, very important because, the bow and arrow doesn't actually have any ammo. Like, you don't actually run out of arrows anytime, so your stamina bar is kind of like your ammo bar, because if you run out of stamina, you're not going to really be able to do a whole lot with your bow and arrow. So the first card that we got is Cross Trainers, which is going to give us plus 20% stamina, plus 20% stamina regeneration, and plus 3% move speed, and plus 5 health. Next, we got Rhythmic Breathing, which is just going to give us plus 40% stamina. And up next, we got Energy Drink, which is going to give us plus 15% stamina and plus 25% weapon swap speed, 15% move speed while we're firing, and plus 10% slow resistance. And to round this category off, we have Natural Sprinter, which is going to give us plus 100% stamina regeneration, but minus 50% of our maximum stamina as the downside. Now, as to why you guys want to play these cards specifically, I think Cross Trainers and Natural Sprinter are really good in this deck, because I think stamina regeneration is what you should be focusing on rather than just making your stamina bar as big as humanly possible, because you can still use up your huge stamina bar till like all the way to the bottom, and then it's just going to take forever to get all the way back to the top. I personally prefer having more stamina regeneration than stamina. And you want to play Rhythmic Breathing in the deck because, our deck's completely revolved around our stamina bar. This gives us, almost another half of the stamina that we spawn with absolutely no downside. And honestly, kind of like a hidden all-star for this deck was Energy Drink, because the weapon swap speed for this deck actually comes up like a lot, because of the fact that there's a lot of snipers going around in the new DLC, and the bow and arrow doesn't really do a good job at hitting the snipers a lot of the time, and unfortunately, you do kind of just have to switch to your gun, and I would highly recommend not playing any cards that disable your ADS, because you have to be able to hit those snipers. So the weapon swap speed actually turned out to be pretty key. When I initially put Energy Drink into this deck, I thought it was going to be kind of like a mediocre card and a card that I was going to end up cutting. But then once I, played through the new DLC a couple times and I realized how, prevalent the snipers are and how prevalent weapon swap speed is, I think that this card is like an all-star in the deck now. And the next category cards that we're going to have are all going to be our weak spot damage cards. And to start this category off, we have Hyper Focused, which is going to give us plus 50% weak spot damage and minus 40% move speed while we're shooting or melee attacking as the downside. Up next, we got Hellfire, which is going to give us plus 45% move speed while we're firing and plus 3% move speed while we're not firing. Now, this card is in here just directly to take off the downside for Hyper Focused, because I do think Hyper Focused is just that strong of a card that I think it's worth using up a card slot to make this downside not as bad. Next, we have Reckless Strategy, which is going to give us plus 30% weak spot damage and minus 5% damage resistance as the downside. Next, we got Front Sight Focus, which is going to give us plus 20% accuracy, plus 10% weak spot damage, plus 15% aim speed, and plus 15% recoil control. And to round this category off, we have Knowledge is Power, which is going to give us plus 10% weak spot damage, and it allows players to see values for damage they deal and enemy health bars. Now, as far as to why you want to play these weak spot cards specifically, I feel like this is fairly stock. Like, there's not a lot of other weak spot cards that you could be playing. Now, the only other thing that I could see is if you wanted to play Ridden Slayer over Front Sight Focus and Knowledge is Power. And the upside to this is you're only using one card to get, the 20% weak spot damage from Ridden Slayer instead of having to use two whole cards. But the thing about it is I just don't think that if we got to play another one of these cards, I don't think it's going to accrue more value than what the extra value that these two are going to give us after the plus 20% weak spot damage. Because, I mean, giving us accuracy and aim speed is very, very important with this bow and arrow deck, because the accuracy is going to make it so the hip firing common is just really not as hard as it needs to be, and the aim speed is really, really useful because this thing really has a slow ADS. The bow and arrow is not the fastest thing to aim in the game. And also being able to see all, the health bars for all the special infected is obviously very important. It is a little less important in, like, the bow and arrow builds, because most of the time, like, you'll know when you kill them because you'll kill them in just 1 to 2 shots. But I do still feel like it is useful because it's a great way to tell if the special infected is actually just dead. And up next, we have High Vis Sights, which is going to give us plus 30% aim speed and plus 15% move speed while we're aim down sights and plus 15% move speed while we're firing. Now, again, like I was saying when I was talking about Front Sight Focus, bow and arrows really don't have the fastest aim speed in the world, and they really do need a little bit of help with it, especially if you're in a situation where there's multiple special infected and you have to sit there scoped in. That way you can charge the bow and arrow and do more damage. Like, there's just a lot of times where I was playing without cards like High Vis Sights and Front Sight Focus, where I felt like just an absolute snail trying to play a bow and arrow and, trying to deal damage to these special infected. Now, these next two cards are just going to be our base damage cards, and that being Silver Bullets, which is going to give us plus 10% bullet damage and plus 15% effective bullet range, and Glass Cannon, which is going to give us plus 25% damage and minus 30% of our health as the downside. Now, the reason why there's not a lot of base damage cards in this deck is because, honestly, I feel like the bow and arrow really doesn't need a lot of extra base damage. I feel like what you really want to be pinning down is your weak spot damage with the bow and arrow specifically, because the bow and arrow is always going to one-tap the common, and it's only going to not one-tap the special infected if you don't hit them in their weak spot and you don't charge it. And our base damage isn't going to affect that most of the time. Like, if we have a bunch of extra base damage in the deck and we still just accidentally miss and shoot a tall boy in the back, like, we're not going to one-tap him. We're still going to have to shoot him more than once with our bow and arrow. And, I mean, that's just not good enough to, put more card slots like this into the deck. Like, I feel like this is just enough base damage to make it to where, like, if you miss the weak spot a couple times, you don't have to shoot them, like, an absurd amount of times. But it's also just, I don't feel comfortable putting more base damage cards into this deck because I don't feel like they can accrue more value than what these cards are. And for the last card in the deck, we have Optics Enthusiast, which is going to give us plus 30% accuracy. And this card is strictly in here just to make the no-scoping for the bow just that much easier. Well, that's going to do it for the video, guys. Make sure to leave a comment down below telling me any deck changes that you guys would make. And as always, if you happen to enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to my channel for more awesome Back 4 Blood content just like this. Also, make sure to check out the link to my Discord server. It's going to be down in the description below. You guys can use it to find teammates to play Back 4 Blood with. So if you guys are in some dire need of teammates, make sure to come check out the Discord server. And until next time, it's been Red, and I'll see you guys in the next video.